Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Titans as well as the latest episode of Van Helsing. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time and start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Titans, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Van Helsing. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Titans. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, obviously I like the angle to this episode. The fact is that Dick is like hallucinating Bruce, and I like that Bruce is so snarky, and I'm wondering, is that really what he is like in his universe? Like, because obviously we want to get a little bit of Bruce, but he's, a calm mentoring type, but I'm curious, does he really talk like that, or is it just kind of like, obviously, like, Dick needs someone to kind of like smack him out of this and kind of set his psyche straight, so his consciousness created a person that would like tell it to him straight, kind of be very upfront about everything, and it's like that one person in his life that would kind of tell it like it is Bruce. But it's just so interesting, like the fact of the matter is just like the snarky remarks kind of making him feel bad, because it's like, oh, Jason, I put him here to keep him safe. You were supposed to watch after him, but you're pretty much failing him and everyone, kind of like poking at, like, obviously. And Dick is trying to pretend like, no, it's not there. It's like, oh, you need to check up on Connor. And it's like, oh, have you been to see Jason yet? He's like, yeah, I'm on my way. And it's like, because Bruce is starting to make him feel like you don't care about these dudes. It's like, oh, you're kind of going with the motions of like, oh, saying that this is all about them, when in actuality it's about yourself. Everyone's asking if he's okay, and he's not. I even love that moment when Dick walks away and Bruce is standing there and being like, oh, don't worry, I'm about to go, maybe pick up, you guys need anything? I'm going to pick up some this, that, maybe even a body bag. Just stuff that was coming out of his mouth. I even love it when Dick met with that dude. And the guy was like, yeah, it's been like, 6 or 7 years? And Bruce is like, it's been 5 years. Why can't anyone get that right? And even later on, it's like, how long was it since you and Slade crossed paths? And Bruce is like, please tell me you. And Dick says 5 years. Bruce is like, thank you. I just love that being a bit. But nevertheless, the fact of the matter is, it's almost like Dick couldn't get away from the Titans Tower as quick as he could. He couldn't get away quick enough. The fact of the matter is, everyone's asking like, yeah, what's up with you? The fact is that the operation kind of, went super sideways because he went alone, but he wasn't willing to tell anyone else. The fact is, like, no one else knows how suicidal he was in that fact. Like, the fact is that he kind of wanted to die because it wasn't just about saving Jason's life. It was also about like, hey, like, the fact of the matter is he wanted to die because he feels he doesn't feel right. It's just a reminder of the guilt that he holds, and that guilt made him think like the only way this is going to be fair is if I die. Like, and it's like, yes, Deathstroke's an asshole. He was a murderer before him, but it's like, doing what I did crossed the line. And obviously crossing the line is something he's dealt with before. We saw tidbits of that in season 1. We got flashbacks of him as Robin, even like getting revenge against the guy who killed his parents. That led to that dude's son going off and killing every person he ever cared about. So it's like, there is a vicious cycle to this, and it's like Deathstroke's coming after you now because of mistakes you made in the past. It's actually kind of interesting because you could actually make a lot of parallels between what Dick's going through in Titans to what Oliver went through in Arrow. Like, there are many similarities, and the fact is your past coming to haunt you. And Oliver suffered through that a lot over the course of the series when you actually think about like a lot of his antagonists, whether it be Slade or whether it be Adrian Chase, Prometheus, that whole situation. So it's always kind of the past rearing its ugly head that you have to kind of end up confronting. And the argument is that, Dick is kind of running the entire time because it's like, oh, I'm going to find Deathstroke. What are you going to do? Kill him? It's like, it's not going to make it better, but you act like it is. And once again, it's like you're acting like this is about, getting revenge for Garth, Aqualad, or getting revenge for what he almost did to Jason. It's like, no, the fact of the matter is you're just doing this to keep your secret. Which is actually sad, because there was a moment where Rose and Jason were actually getting together, like they were having a sweet moment, because like Jason was so caught up in reliving that moment over and over again of him falling to his death, and Rose was the only one that kind of was able to kind of reach to him, because it's like because out of anyone, like, it's like everyone in that tower is crazy. The fact of the matter is, it's like, do you guys need like a super shrink or something to kind of deal with your issues? And for him, he's like, the fact is we don't talk about our issues. And I think that's something that kind of gets, I feel like, never really comes up too much in superhero stuff. But the fact that superheroes have a hard time talking about their issues. You see that in prevalent, just using DC stuff, for example. Oliver has a hard time telling people and opening up about a lot of stuff. Barry kind of does as well. So it's there, that element of like, oh man, there's just that thing of like, I guess it's because you're a hero, you're supposed to be strong, and if you kind of falter on that, it's just an interesting thing to kind of think about. But yeah, they were getting along because for her, it's like, well, at least you're a little crazy, sure, but your crazy is something I can kind of understand, because she probably finds herself a little more in line with Jason amongst anyone amongst the Titans. And they had this sweet moment and everything, her dancing, and it was like, oh, I'll teach you how to dance. It's a lot like fighting. And they kiss and everything, but that moment's kind of shattered the moment she finds a record that's got her brother's writing on it. And so it's like, are you lying to me? It's everyone lying to me, which technically they all are, with the exception of Jason. Jason knew nothing about this. Neither did Gar nor Rachel knew about this old Jericho thing. This is OG Titan's secret in particular. Like, obviously, it's something Donna, Dawn, and Hank have held on to, as well as Dick, but I think he's the one that's kind of held onto it the most. Like, everyone else kind of feels like, are you just really trying to pretend like these ghosts don't exist? But I think maybe Dick was like, it's like he even said to himself, like, the past is past, and Bruce was like, no, it's not. The fact of the matter is, it still haunts you. It is still following you. So there's no like, oh, it's just in the past, because it is still there, fresh in your mind. It's what's motivating all your moves right now to kind of be almost as erratic as you are, Because it's interesting, because Bruce kept trying to get him to turn back, as like, go back to where you're needed, but he couldn't, because he was so busy running away from what he did that he couldn't admit it, because for him it was like, it'd been so long, and it's just so hard to admit the mistake that he made, because it's like because you're afraid that if you let the truth out, that all these people you've surrounded yourself with will go, because it's like, you're afraid of the dark. You've been like that ever since you were a kid, and it's just because he doesn't want to lose the people that he's come around. And it's like, if people learn the truth about what's inside of him, then he's afraid that they'll all leave him and he'll be all alone again. But I think the interesting thing is, when the time comes, I think there'll be parallels that everyone will actually come back stronger together, because Rachel's dealing with her own thing. She's not talking. Like, that's the thing. None of them are talking is their biggest issue. Like, because obviously, like, the others are brought up everything about, to Dick about, like, oh, the past and everything, but they've never, like, they want to, that's something I brought up too. It's like, they want to talk about, the fact is that he's not talking about things, but it's like, you're bringing it up, but you're not really talking about either. Corey had asked you about it, and, like, Donna kind of, like, changed the conversation, obviously, because she was like, yeah, that's just something she wanted to leave in the past. You actually kind of feel bad for Jason, because he ends up getting the brunt of it, and it's actually something that, Rose had talked about, because he kind of gets blamed for being like the screw up and everything, because it's like, even like, he's like, yeah, it wasn't Dick's fault the way things kind of went down, but it's like, Rose is like, yeah, but it's also not your fault either. But for him, he takes a lot of blame on himself, because he thinks of himself as, I'm the screw up, and everyone kind of thinks I'm the screw up. When shit went going weird around the tower, who did they immediately blame? Jason, because obviously Rachel had issues with him. It's like, oh, you drew all these crosses up there because it's a reminder from her mom, and the fact of the matter is the evil that's in her and the evil that she's struggling with. Like, it's like, because that it's like some very psychological warfare that's being used against everyone. Obviously, everything related to Hank's issues of just his way to kind of deal with his pain. Obviously, the soda that Aqualad had, Garth had gotten Donna, the friend that Dr. Light had killed for Dawn, and now this for Rachel. What I also thought was kind of interesting is the fact is Gar was just like, oh, I'm asleep. I'm like, there's got to be something up with, I don't know, I just thought it was kind of interesting that he just happened to kind of escape all that. But I guess it's because Gar, I'm sure is still dealing with the fact is, well, he dealt with it last season, maybe, but we'll see if it comes back around. But obviously the whole thing of like, oh, remember that dude, he killed that scientist? Like, he ripped into him, that was the first time he had ever hurt someone, transformed and everything. So that was, I don't know. Plus, obviously, the, kind of rocky road that him and, Rachel are on right now. So I'm curious to see what ends up happening. Because that's the thing, because I'm skipping around here, but obviously, like, that's what Dick ends up finding out later on. He goes to that spot. He sees all these pictures. They're pictures from with, within Titan's towers, like the very, very close up pictures of the Titan. So it's like he's been in there, not unless he has someone secretly taking those pictures for him. But some of them were Rose, so it's like it's not like it was Rose who was doing it. So part of me wonders, it's like, did Guard get messed with, and the fact he's under someone else's control? I doubt that, but it just seemed interesting. He's like, yo, what's going on? I was sleeping. Like, I just thought that was a little suspicious, but that's most likely me just reading too much into it. I just thought it was just kind of interesting because he was also the only one that didn't have something kind of thrown in his face. Everyone else did, and obviously the whole blame points to Jason, but maybe that's supposed to play into the fact is that they were together, when it came to like, going after Dr. Light, so maybe that played into like Guard not having that much beef with Jason, or maybe it's supposed to play into the fact is that he'd be like, oh really, he did all that? It's like, well, Jason does go off half-cocked, so that kind of seems like it's, so maybe it just kind of folds in that way. I don't know. And the sad thing is, Jason kind of takes it. It's like, I'm done with this place. The fact of the matter is, that's all you guys do is just kind of pile on me like, oh yeah, it's all my fault. And he starts thinking that it is his fault. He thinks of himself as the poison. Kind of before I, finish that. Well, I'll go ahead and finish it up. The fact is, he thinks of himself as poison. That is like, and it's not just here at the Titans. He's like, so many people try to help me out. You, Bruce, just so many other people. And it just never worked out. He's like, I spent 2 years in juvie and 4 people were dead, and that, for him, it's like, it's haunted me ever since, because the fact is, it's just like, that's something that, a ghost that's been following him forever, but, you have Dick being like, it's not a ghost that's following you. You don't have anything following you. And he's looking back at Bruce, because Bruce is saying, like, you know what to do to get rid of me? All you have to do is tell the truth. You're holding on to this, and obviously this truth is waiting to burst out. Because if you don't tell it now, it's going to burst out of you in some other way, because obviously you're bursting at the seams because you're almost borderline suicidal because you're throwing yourself in Slade's way for him to kill you. So the lady who gave him information at that club, she looks so familiar. I don't remember where I know her from, but she looks so familiar. It bothers the crap out of me. I'm going to have to look into that. But nevertheless, I'm going on a tangent. I also did like kind of the other side of the episode. It deals with like obviously Eve losing her job, Crypto being locked up again. And so, it's interesting because Mercy brought up something I thought was kind of interesting, where she was kind of basically like, oh yeah, like the fact is having it being made from even a fraction of Lex Luthor makes him super. You've met him, but it's almost like it was almost doomed. I didn't know how to interpret that. I didn't know whether Mercy was kind of interpreting like, oh, the fact of the matter is you see the mad genius that is Lex. He's amazing, but that's just kind of self-destruction waiting to happen. Or the fact of the matter is maybe Lex would have just grown tired because of who he is. Like, oh, this thing's a pale imitation of me, would have never been good enough. Or maybe it's just because it is part Lex and being part Superman it would have never been a happy story, is kind of what she was alluding to. I just wasn't sure 100% in what way she meant that. Nevertheless, Eve ended up getting fired, which I guess in the long run, it kind of works because it out for the better, because for her, it's like, she obviously, like, things didn't go the way she wanted it to. And even she admitted, like, she kind of crossed lines because she was like, oh, I was curious, like, where things would go with this O'Connor thing. But, because even to the point, she doesn't recognize him as like, oh, test subject 13. It's like, no, his name is Connor. He's not a thing. He's a person, especially because she's come to know him. And obviously she ends up freeing Crypto, which I love to see, like, oh, Crypto totally can't do the whole flying thing, which begs the question, can Connor? I think he has a lot more. I think Crypto has a lot more of the Superman gene than Connor does, because he does have half and half. So like I said, I wonder if he's more in line with Smallville Clark than he would be. I think he probably will be closer in line to that rather than full-blown Superman. I think Crypto is kind of borderline Superman, but nevertheless, that was kind of pretty neat. And obviously he shows up. What I thought was also fascinating too is that Cora could understand. I mean, Corey could understand him. Did I call her Cora earlier, or did I call her Cora? I'm pretty sure I called her Corey. Not just this instance, but earlier in the recording. Regardless, I'm going on a tangent. But I thought it was kind of neat how the fact is, it's like, oh, what's that language he's speaking? It's Kryptonian. It was like, you know Kryptonian? It's like, Dawn didn't take time to know. Like, what? Like, oh, it's just like, oh, I know Kryptonian. It's not. It's like, no, hold up a minute. Which, I mean, I guess it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, because when we got first introduced her into season 1, obviously she knows English, she knows Russian. So the fact is, plus obviously she would know her own native tongue of Tamaranian, which obviously like we learned that too. So it's like, I guess because on her way to Earth she learned many different languages, or maybe just Tamaranians in general gather knowledge so they know different languages, or maybe they're just instinctually meant to be like, oh, I know every language, or is she kind of like, because apparently Superman kind of has this thing that's like, I don't know, it's not necessarily a photographic memory, but he retains knowledge very easily, almost kind of, I don't know what, I feel like it's called eidetic memory or something like that. I could be mistaken. I wonder if she has something like that where it's like she'll quickly look at something once or twice and kind of immediately kind of be able to fly through it. So maybe at one point in time while she was on Earth, she's like, oh, let me study all these different languages. Oh, Kryptonian, what is this? Or maybe just because she was coming to Earth and she knew about like Superman existing, there were probably records about everything and everything. I wondered how much did she know about the heroes coming to Earth? Like, did she know that, did she know like Batman and Superman and all that? Like, I'd assume she researched Earth a bit before coming here, but so maybe that's when. Either way, it's just kind of interesting. Like, she probably knows way more languages than we even really know about. I feel like I don't think they've referenced her like just how many languages she knows. It's something that does come up though. I mean, it's come up now. I just think it's fascinating. What was kind of interesting, because he needed like the radiation, because obviously his condition isn't getting better, Connor's, like, because of the kryptonite bullet, it's spreading like poison. So it's like, yeah, we need radiation from like the sun, but there's no one to take him there because the time is running low. It's like, oh, you need something heated like the sun. And Corey smiles. It's like, why didn't you tell me so? And it's like, yeah, we're about to do this because Rachel's so enthusiastic about it, because she thinks like, man, this isn't going to work, because she has to bubble in Corey as Corey kind of goes almost like borderline supernova. I thought was kind of pretty dope. And like, Rachel kind of does her thing, and I love Eve standing there on the other side being like, holy shit. I do appreciate kind of the outside view showing it being like a shining star of just like how bright it's burning, but nevertheless everything kind of works out and Connor's there. It's like, oh, he's okay. And he's standing there butt naked too, but it's like, hey, it's okay, and the floor's scorched. But I love that heart to heart he had where he's like, yo, I'm sorry I did it. She's like, don't you ever apologize. Like, the world is better off having you doing heroic things. I was just being stupid. I just didn't want you to get caught and everything, but me telling you not to be a hero is wrong when the world can benefit from you. And she's like, go ahead. And he calls her mom. I'm like, that's super adorable. I was like, that's super neat. I really like that. So it's like, oh, you rest up, and obviously I'm gonna be around, and it's like, oh, dude, I hope nothing happens to Eve. I get the feeling like something will, but I'm like, don't make it tragic. Make it so his mom gets to stay around. He gets to know her more. I hope that. So obviously, we'll kind of end this off with talking about the big reveal. It's like, okay, what secret has Dick been holding on to this entire time? And obviously it revolves around Jericho, but what exactly? And he brings up the fact is, he's like, I killed Slade's son, which obviously you can interpret that in many different ways, in the sense that like, oh, I used him, I put him in this position, and he ended up dying as a result of it, so I'm responsible for his death. Or is it more so, because it makes it seem like Slade's the one that actually killed him, but maybe the point is like, maybe Dick accidentally killed him trying to lure him in. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's that way, but it'd be interesting if they turn out to be like straight up like, no, he killed him. I don't think so, because no matter what the circumstances are, but for Dick, it's probably the thing of like, but I'm still responsible because I set up the situation like that, which I'm sure Rose is going to want to hear, which I'm also curious, like the next episode might kind of be a flashback to 5 years ago explaining all that, and then we cut back to present day where he's explaining to everyone, which I'm also curious like what Rose's reaction is. I mean, obviously probably she's not even in the tower anymore because she bounced, because she was like, screw all of them, because they knew what happened to Jericho. Dick knew Jericho didn't say anything. So I'm very curious to ultimately see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Van Helsing. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, it's so interesting because we got Vanessa obviously doing her non-violent act. It's almost interesting because she's borderline like the boogeyman, because she's chasing down all these vampires, turning them back into humans and stuff like that. And obviously, I think there's a moment of her kind of fighting back, but then she stops because she's like, no, this isn't the way. Like, I am the light. I've walked this path of darkness for so long. I got to make up for what I've done. This is the right path I'm on, finally. And she's let all those vampires bite her, which it almost seems like when you're on the borderline bridge of death, at least in her case, it seems like she goes back to that place and she ends up running into Violet. Obviously, they're not knowing each other, but still, and it's front of that gate, which is like, okay, so what does this mean? What's this vision all about? And when she rises back up, it's like, oh, everyone's there. They're human again. They're like, oh my God, you saved us. And the dude's like, oh my God, you saved us and everything. And she's like, I know. And she's starting to walk away. And they follow her. She's like, whoa. What are you doing? It's like, you saved us. We're going with you. It's like, all right. You're immune to the eternal vampire anymore. They won't want to drink your blood because it's vile to them. But doesn't mean you can't be killed. So, go out and kind of spread the word, or spread out and help other people. Which is interesting because the moment it happened, I'm like, oh my God, it's almost like, in a way, Vanessa's building her own little cult. I've been kind of saying this since season 2, like, she's been building up her own little personal army in a sense, because like in, season 2, when she starts changing everyone back, like obviously having like Julius, Doc, Flash, and Axel as these people who she turned, kind of all scattered around. Hell, even did Muhammad for a little bit. Like, this army of hers exists, and now it's growing, especially now. She's not killing vampires, she's saving them. So that army is just growing and growing and growing. So it's interesting to see. There's almost like this borderline cult of like, because obviously the whispers are going to grow about, oh my God, the savior, especially because she's definitely going down a savior route. So it's just interesting to see where like the progression of her story from being like, I'm just in this to save my daughter, I'm not trying to be some savior, to just like some vampire killer, to straight up some savior. So it's interesting to see like the progression of her character over the course of these 4 seasons, is to find her here. And now, what was also interesting is we got the confrontation between her and Axel. Because it's like, she sensed Axel coming. It's like, it don't have to be like this. But Axel's like, it does. So that was pretty sad. Because you're like, come on, Axel. Because she even brings it up later on. But I'm like, come on, Axel. It's not like she hasn't lost during this as well. You've lost a lot. You lost Scarlet. You lost your sister. You literally lost your sister all those years ago. You found her again just to lose her. And then you lost Scarlet. So that has to, suck. But it's just a lot, because obviously Scarlet meant a lot to him, and obviously in his eyes it's like, oh, you didn't stop her, you didn't try to save her. But Vanessa's like, I literally tried to save her. I literally left her on an island. She was never supposed to be there. But if Scarlet hadn't done what she done, who knows? Like, it might not be Sam that's the evil, the elder that he is right now. Vanessa would have went full-blown elder, and she would have been probably the ultimate darkness, So, like I said, where Sam is right now, that could have been Vanessa if it wasn't for what Scarlet did, She brought that light back into Vanessa, who was kind of drowning in darkness, So, I don't know. It thinks, I'd assume so, because, Scarlet did, and that's something Vanessa was trying to say too. Like, Scarlet did what she thought was right. And it's just, because obviously it's just, because it's like, it's not just you that lost Scarlet, I lost her too, but it's like, don't even say her name, and it's just, like I said, it's just a situation where they're both hurting, and he just needs someone to blame, and just, and because I thought it was kind of sweet what Vanessa was saying. It's like, I lost Dylan, I lost Scarlet, and the sad thing is, I lost you to the one person who's supposed to have my back during all of this. And through the struggle, Axel accidentally stabs himself, but it turns out he rapidly heals. So I'm like, oh, snap. Okay, so that's interesting too, because it's like, it seems like that happens to people at varying points about like how like they get that. I guess the mutation affects different people at different points in time. Like when she cures you, yeah, but like I guess the mutation is always developing. Maybe just certain things trigger the mutation faster. Because last season he never healed rapidly. It never made a point to show that he healed rapidly. It showed that he was still kind of very human. But it's like Julius and Phil healed, like they were the first ones that you go like, holy shit, they heal super fast. So I don't know. So I guess it takes a while, which begs the question, what about everyone else? Anyone else that she's cured, is everyone else eventually going to have rapid healing like that? It's just going to take a while before they get to that point, maybe. But it's like, if you want to, go ahead and kill me, chop my head off, but you're going to basically be killing what Scarlet sacrificed her life for, me and you, So it seems like everything kind of settled, and obviously Axel's like, part of me can never forgive you, but I can't go with you. And she's like, no, this is something I feel like I got to do on my own. And it's nice to see them kind of buddy again. Because when you actually think about it, it's like, because Vanessa's always cared about Axel, because it's like, you've literally had my back, not just up to this point through the course of the series, even a 3-year time skip, during the Rising, you weren't, because you believed in me. Like, you believed that maybe I was kind of, I mean, he was following orders, but I think it was much more than that, obviously. And it's like it kind of paid off in the end, after all that time waiting. So I mean, that's another reason why it hit him so hard, because I literally sacrificed 3 years of my life in that hospital, and for it all to end like this? Because even Vanessa, feels like everyone around her she cares about dies. That's also why that's why she's kind of doing this alone too. I think it's just because she doesn't want to have anyone else mixed up. Hell, she did the same thing with Muhammad. She told Muhammad not to be there, but he followed her regardless. So it's that bond that she creates with people, that people care about her and want to help her, especially when she's helped them. Scarlett, it's like, you're my sister. I'm going to, Scarlett was like, I'm going to help you regardless, especially because when you're pushing me away is when you need me the most. So when you need people the most tend to be the case when you're pushing them away. So, but it's good to see that they're on good terms again. And she gives him the page of like, hey, if you ever need me, like, this compass will point you right back to where I am. So that's kind of neat. And he says, like, I'm going to do something I needed to do before. I'm chalking that up to being rescuing Phil and Jolene, because he left them behind. Because I was wondering whether he was really going to do that, but then it's just because it was a reminder of like what he lost, and because like after losing Scarlett, it seemed like maybe he cared about people, maybe he didn't, but it just seemed like people were more of like especially because these people were connections to Scarlett in his past and stuff like that. So it probably just reminded him of it. So he didn't want to, but now it's like, no, I got to do the right thing. I should have done that before. I should have rescued him. So I think he's going to go back to help them. So there's that side of things. Then there's the whole Julian pushing Violet with her training and everything. Obviously she doesn't believe she's a Van Helsing, but it's like, what about your parents? It's like, well, she doesn't really know because they died. So it's like, oh, but the only person with those answers would be Hansen, which he's not giving them because he actually moved Doc. They try to get to her, which is interesting, like the whole trading system, because he also had to trade because Julius traded toothpaste for night vision goggles, which is like shows you how special certain things is. I mean, I guess when you consider it's the apocalypse, it's like, whoa, toothpaste, get to have fresh breath. Also, like, socks were given to the guard, and he was like, all right, fine, 5 minutes. But I guess Hansen doesn't 100% know that, her powers have awakened. He's got some idea, but he was curious. I guess he needs to know for sure. Like, maybe Doc got a sample of her blood and was looking at it, sure, but he wants to see what Julius knows and whether or not she's fully activated, or maybe Doc just saw something in general in her blood before they activate, So he wants to know whether, because he's asking her, and it's like, and Julius is like, oh, look who's playing dumb now. Well, what's interesting, though, is it seemed like, I don't know whether it didn't seem like it's hard to say whether he just choked him until he passed out or whether he broke his neck to make him pass out. But regardless, he took down Julius like it was nothing. So it's like, okay, he's definitely got some superhuman strength. So Home Dude isn't the only one, Home Dude from Black Tech isn't the only dude who had experimented on himself. The dude from season 2 and season 3. He's the one that kind of gave himself kind of like, he's, I guess, kind of like the Frankenstein of this universe to a certain extent. The dude that had actually worked with Abigail, who had extended his life and everything, but made himself look like that dude. I'm wondering, are a lot of people, what did Hansen do the reason why he is the way he is? Because it seemed like he's got some version of superhuman strength, but I'm curious, like maybe it's a mild comparison to other people's thing, but whatever. So there's that. There's the fact is, like I said, Violet brings up the question, but, he's like, the fact of the matter is I've been protecting you even before the Rising. So you were left in my care. I guess it's kind of the same thing as how Scarlett was left in someone else's care. So I think it's a very similar situation to Scarlett's. It's actually interesting because I think Violet's kind of like the Scarlett, and I think Jack is kind of the Vanessa, at least with their backgrounds and stuff like that, because Vanessa went looking for Dylan. She kind of grew up in the system. She never had like one concrete family, or at least Scarlett kind of had her pseudo dad and pseudo mom. Like obviously her dad was training her and everything. So I think it is more reminiscent of Violet is more reminiscent of Scarlett, whereas Vanessa and, I mean, to be fair, Jack and Vanessa automatically kind of had this kinship like that to a certain extent. So it kind of makes sense, but nevertheless. So And she's obviously, the dreams are getting stronger. She asked Lee to come leave with her, but, it's like, oh, just having someone leave on a dime with you like that. It's like, no, I got this here, and it's just like, you don't know what it's like out there. So, like, at the very least, you're safe here. But it's like, and, it's like, it's a prison. She's kind of grown up in this quote-unquote prison for so long, and now she feels like, wait, there's something greater out there. She wanted to get out anyway, but now she feels the pull even more since changing, So it's like, she's drawn to something out there, so she's got to go find it, So there's that. There's the fact is that Jack caught up with Vanessa, and it's like, oh, she's felt the pull too. She thought it was towards Vanessa, but it's towards something else. So it's like, okay, so many things happening. And then we've got Sam and the Oracle showing up to the sisterhood because it's time to wake up the mother, the sisterhood's mother, Michaela. And that's so interesting in many different regards. For one, it's like the fact is they both are like, Sam is looking the way he does. He's got the coat, he's got the glasses and everything. It's like, wow, it's kind of nuts to see you look human again, because you haven't looked human in a while. You've been a vampire since season 1, near the end of season 1. You've been one that long, so it's so crazy. And to see him just almost borderline looking so normal. I think the part of my brain also kind of thinks behind the scenes of like, that's gotta be kind of neat that you don't have to like, because that's probably like heavy makeup he has to put on to look the way he did in the premiere, the season finale and the premiere. Also that, because that's how he have to look all the time. And I'm sure it also helps not having, like, I'm sure the same thing for the Oracle, not having to talk like that all the time. And also having not to wear the makeup, so I'm sure that helps. But obviously there's bad blood between Michaela and the Oracle, because apparently she's the one that kind of led her to get locked up for the 2 centuries she's been locked up. It's like, oh, but the fact of the matter is, you should be thanking me, because we were, like, in that time, we were almost hunted to extinction, so I kind of helped you out by, like, having you locked up. And obviously there's the whole thing with Sam, because Sam being like, oh, I like her. And I love that thing of like, Michaela kind of brings him to his knees and stuff like that. It's like, oh, you killed love for darkness. And he's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, but you've only basically touched the surface of darkness. You'll really get to know darkness later on. And she kisses him. And you can almost see the Oracle kind of bothered by it. And then like Sam's just kind of laughing maniacally. And it's almost this thing of like Michaela looking at him like, what the fuck is up with this dude? And even the Oracle, like he's grabbing onto her waist and around her stomach and everything. She's almost like, okay, let's placate this idiot or something like that. I don't know, that's just the look on her face, like she was almost disgusted, like, okay. Because I guess it's because he's so flip-floppy. It's like, yeah, you just kissed her. I thought we kind of had something. I thought you were kind of mine, but okay. She even referred to the Dark One as our beloved. And it's like, and Michaela was like, our beloved? Don't almost like, don't get it twisted type of thing. So it's like, that's definitely going to be interesting going forward. But obviously they show up at the base where Henson is. So he has some kind of connection to that, because it's like, wait, what group is at the door? And it's like, wait, it's them? What's going on there? Wait, what? And it's like, what connection is Black Tech actually super connected to all of this? Do they actually know where the Dark One is? Or is it supposed to be like, do you think in some way that's what Violet was supposed to be, that because that's the thing, like, because is it supposed to be a thing of like, she's supposed to be the replacement, like, oh, if we can't get to Vanessa, we've already got this Van Helsing, kind of stashed away. So maybe that's why he kept wondering, because if she activated, that meant that it was going to be time to potentially sacrifice her for what's to come, because they need a Van Helsing for this. So I'm wondering if that was why he was kind of worried about it, because he wanted to protect her. He never wanted her to leave, because he never wanted her to activate her Van Helsing side, because I guess it's also like, hey, eventually she's going to be used for this, so maybe when the time came, he would potentially want her to run, which she's already run away. He just doesn't know it yet, but I'm just curious about that. What I did like, too, is as they were driving, there was someone that ran right by, and I'm like, is that Julius? And then all of a sudden, Sam's head turns, and then the Oracle's like, what was that? And he was like, nothing. I'm like, is it because he thought, I wonder, did he go like, wait, is that something? I guess not. Or did he know what it was, but he was like, it's Julius. It's not something to worry about. When in actuality, there's deeper connections, because obviously he's connected to Violet, and Violet and him are connected to Vanessa, so there's something there on that front. So a lot of interesting kind of setup. I'm very curious to kind of see where ultimately this ends up taking us going forward. I'm really curious, like, what it is, because they're just strolling up, because it's not all of them either, because it looks like it's just Oracle, Sam, and Michaela. So I'm wondering where the rest of the sisterhood is. I'm sure they're going to try and fill out their ranks again, but more so than anything, this is about raising the Dark One now. So I'm interested to see where all that ends up taking us. Like, what's going to happen when all those paths cross of, like, maybe Julius runs into Vanessa first. It's like, whoa, there's this girl, Violet, which I almost forgot to talk about that. The moment he kept being like, oh, what happened to your sister? I was like, sister? I'm like, don't tell me it. Jax? And it's like, turns out totally is Jack. I'm like, of course. Because I was like, because I'm about to say, it'd be the odds of, like, you just not being related, just being Van Helsing. So I'm like, there's got to be some connection there. It's like, oh no, you're definitely siblings. Because Jack is talking about the fact that, well, because I totally forgot, Jack did talk about, did she say a sister, or did she just straight up say a sibling? Because she talked about her parents, that she was looking for them, which they're dead now. Like, obviously it was an accident, maybe, potentially, I don't know. Which there's a part of my brain that immediately goes, no, you don't think the people that were looking after Vanessa and that were in that accident we saw kind of at the beginning of season 3, you don't think that was Jax and Violet's parents, do you? I mean, I don't know, because that's the only accident that's popped up in my head, but, maybe that's me drawing to, because it seemed like it was just random people that were chosen as guardians, which also begs the question, was Hansen actually chosen as a guardian, or did he actually, this so-called accident, even if it wasn't that, was it some other accident where it's like, oh, I killed your parents and I'm looking after you for particular reasons, or was he actually chosen as a guardian to look after Violet? I don't know. I'm curious to see that, but like, so many different roads are converging. Shit is cut, dude. I'm getting so excited to see, like, ultimately where everything kind of leads, especially Vanessa being like, all like, oh, I'm going to be the savior. What does that mean going forward with this whole, Violet and Jack situation? The gate that they keep seeing, I guess it's a gate to where the Dark One is hidden, or maybe it's like a gate to deeper darkness. Once again, I'm going to make my other weekly reference to Kingdom Hearts, because I literally went into it like the other day. Kind of is it supposed to be like a Kingdom Hearts thing? I'm like, oh, this is the door to darkness when there's a little bit of light on, without getting too much into it. But I wonder, is it kind of a similar thing of like, oh, open a door and dive into like the deepest darkness to fight the Dark One or something? I don't know. I'm curious what that's all about. So ultimately we'll have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.